We're going to go through a project I have that might be helpful for anyone using LLMs and more complex, more up-to-date style system prompts. So let's go right into it. The project that I have is on GitHub Gregory G called AI Pical, or AI Prompts I Have Known and Loved. And I just want to run through these and then let you know how you might want to add issues. As I see I have, I didn't even know I had that. And make suggestions, pull requests are welcome, and so forth. So let's just go straight to it. I'll move to my project, AIP call, and open up the README. This is the same one that you see in the GitHub repo page, but I can make it into an org mode presentation, which I shall do. Let's see, Power Slides, Start Presentation, and let's just get to it. So we start off, these prompts are composable. They're meant to be composable and tangled, which is a literate programming term, so that link to the literate programming definition on Wikipedia. I want to capture the best performing and the most used prompts, which these are now kind of slowly evolving over time as more useful ways of prompting LLMs are being developed and discovered. They can be used with any LLM. So if you've seen my other videos about Emacs with GPTel or other types of things, the tools that I want to use, such as LangChain and so forth, will be only used if they can access any type of API. So I want to access LLMs via API only, and that means proprietary and open source ones. And then we can use it with OrgBabel. This particular file can be used with OrgBabel to generate the system prompts needed for any particular package. In my case, I use a package in Emacs called GPTel, and there's a variable called GPTel directives, and it wants a particular format or data structure for the prompts that it uses. So this will actually generate those. And if you use Emacs, you can make use of that. If you use anything else, it's just, copy and paste. Okay. So here's my set of system prompts. We're going to go through them very quickly. It's not really about digging into the prompts themselves, but so that you can see the package, the layout, and get some ideas of your own of what to, steal and deploy, or, contribute in addition, or even correct if you see things that are better performing. So the first original gangsta smarter upper for LLMs is think step by step. I was always mystified by some of the early papers about chain of thought and things like that. Like, how do you actually make it do it? It's as simple as prompting to do it. And then this will actually make something like GPT-4 use more compute and show its work, if you will, as you would in math class. All right, so that's a simple one that you might add to a number of other prompts, but actually, as you'll see, more recent prompts kind of include that and better even ideas like chain of thought. Self-ask prompting is break down questions into follow-up questions when necessary to arrive at the correct answer and show the steps you follow. So that's more explicit version of think step by step. Another prompt would be the auto expert. This is something where I included some links to this guy's a Medium post by someone else, and then the author's repo for this because it is crazy complex and interesting. And when using ChatGPT in the browser, there are two sets of prompts. One is kind of the context that you can set in that new web page item in settings, and the other is a system prompt itself. But the fact is, it doesn't make much difference to be across the board usable for any LLM. You simply want to combine what would be in that context plus the system prompt into just the system prompt. So in this case, what's happening with this prompt would be that every time you ask a question, it's instructed to create a preamble at the start of its response. I use variations I've used variations of this for a long time, and it's really cool. We'll see a much simpler one later. And then you'll notice that this particular code block in org mode, let me just get rid of the image here, is basically you can include an about me section. This is part of the kind of the ChatGPT ID. It really doesn't make much difference depending on what kind of questions you're asking of it. And then my expectations of assistance. So this is more fitting the usual newer form of prompting that I use in subsequent prompts, where there's basically a markdown hierarchical document that is the system prompt itself. You want to set language and tone, content, depth, and breadth. You could say, either be very concise or be very wordy, things like that. And then how you want output formatted. And this whole hyperlink prompt is a really interesting one, because you're going to be working with LLMs that do not have agency. In other words, they cannot use tools such as looking things up on the internet. However, if they do give you something that could be researched with a search, then why not tell it to just embed that into a link that calls Google search or Bing search with the terms that it's talking about, so that you can then end up with a document that is easily clickable. This whole notion of the document forming and being self-documenting as you chat back and forth with the LLM is just wonderful. And so I have both of these, and then there's another kind of more configurable part of the thing, where you can configure the way the LLM responds to any specific prompt that you give it after this. And then this little code block looks weird, but all that is it's an Emacs specific, org mode specific thing that says take those two prompts and combine them into one file called, what is it called? Oh, here it is, auto expert. So it will just generate a file called autoexpert.md in a directory I have called system prompts, that will then combine all of them, and you can just put that, feed that directly to your LLM. All right. Now, next would be the image AI prompt generator. This I stole from David Shapiro, who does presentations that look roughly like this kind of layout. My floating head here with image over here, and then basically some slide points over in the side. So basically, in my case, this is not just like a slide deck; it's actual living org mode, so that I can use all the features as I show it. At any rate, this prompt is to give to Midjourney, where you actually use an LLM to improve your own prompts for an image generator. And this thing is brilliant. It creates wonderful ideas that you would never have thought of based on a mini shot examples. So here's a whole bunch of examples. If you want Midjourney to format it in a particular aspect ratio, you can do that. That's what this --AR is for. And there might be different things. So if you have these in here, you could have the LLM generate you prompts like this for any given idea that you have. It's really it's one of the ones that I end up using quite a lot in generating images, like for these very slideshows. And then there's a slide deck maker, which will let you kind of create bullet points. I don't make much use of this, and if I did, this presentation would probably be better. No, it wouldn't, because actually this presentation is just the prompts themselves. And then I can skip some of these through these things. You have the standard things, writing collaborator, writing editor, things like that, but things that are much more detailed in the instruction set and the format and the style that you want than some of the earlier prompts is, you are a writer, and things like that, which are not really very helpful at all. And then, of course, because we're in this kind of composable framework, I like to do the writing collaboration with Dorothy Parker or BoJack Horseman or Raymond Chandler, for example, with the LLM behaving snarkily or whatever instead of just the corporate nice kind of persona. Then a prompt called SQL Sensei is very useful for saying, I want to turn natural language questions into SQL queries. How do I do that? And so for one, here's an example of the entire prompt, that your role is to articulate natural language questions into precise executable SQL queries that answer those questions. The user will supply DDL, either condensed or not, depending on what model you're using. And this will be your guide to understanding the structure, including tables, columns, and relationships between them. Pay special attention to primary key and foreign key constraints, I should say. Since I'm in an editable thing, I might as well fix that now. Constraints to guide you in knowing what tables may be joined. The rules, you should generally use distinct when you tell it something like this. Also give it an example of doing it. One of the most useful things you can do in anything that involves any kind of coding is your code that you produce should be presented within GFM code blocks, and then give an example of it. It's like 3 backticks, SQL, 3 backtick. And if the given prompt that I do with this system prompt, or the given question, does not result in a query, maybe because something's missing or it can't be done with that schema, then the LLM will respond with natural language information about that, and any script I'm using that utilizes this prompt will know that there was no SQL statement generated. So it can the code that you're looking for to go execute that only needs to look for the source code blocks and can ignore everything else. That way you don't have to worry about the fact that LLMs can be chatty and do more than you ask them to do. Apply explicit join syntax like inner join and left join whenever you're doing joins. Primary and for key, lean on those constraints to know how to do joins, and so forth and so on. And obviously these things came from a lot of trial and error where things where SQL statements were generated that weren't very good. So this is very verbose, but it's actually really great for the results that it produces. And then there is something similar for Sparkle queries if you have a RDF graph database, for example, and with similar types of rules. The same kind of instruction set that you would give to the SQL Sensei. Categorize responses is so simple, but you should almost, not should, but could almost use this as a default prompt in front of any system prompt, which is tell the LLM to preface your responses with a relevant hashtag. And you can either let it make up hashtags or you can give it a set of hashtags. That way, the LLM will pre-categorize its responses, and if your context, like token context size limited with a given model, you could be chatting about making cocktails, as I do sometimes with BoJack Horseman. All those LLM answers would be prefaced with hashtag food-drink, and then you could switch to a coding question where the hashtag is coding, and you could choose to send the LLM only the set of conversation that has to do with coding. for that response. And then when you go back to music or something like that, you could send it the context of the response only that had to do with music. Sophisticated use of this kind of idea means that you could do something like LangChain in a single document. You could have the idea of different agents like a creative writer and an editor and a critic all in a single document calling the same API with different contexts for each role that you're calling. And I've done a little bit of that in scripting, and kind of it simplifies the not cruft, but some of the massive amounts of code that can be involved in doing something like LangChain. And then I have mentioned Bojack because I really don't like nice, helpful assistants. I want snarky, world-weary, conversational partners. So I found this to be a very, very nice type of thing. And you see, even for Bojack, because I use it for general purposes, I even include that code example to say wrap it in GFM code blocks such as this. And then Bojack plus categories is just an example of combining those two things. So proceed with category hashtags and be Bojack. And then a number of other probably not super useful prompts that I may prune out of this tree later. The sparse priming representation writer. So both for SQL Sensei and the Sparkleizer, I said the user will present you a condensed version of the entire DDL or the entire RDF ontology. Because of token limits, you want to kind of compress that down. This is a good prompt to have the LLM do that compression for you. If you have an LLM that can take your entire ontology in the first place. And this was an idea actually from David Shapiro. He had the decompressor too, which is not nearly as useful as the compressor because it doesn't do nearly as good a job. But then a knowledge base article writer. If you're learning a language, you can specify where you're starting from, that you like colloquial language, you want to do flashcards, to put in your flashcard system like Anki, and then basically where you're starting from. Like if you're already fluent in something that is relevant, in this case especially English and German are very relevant to Dutch, then let the AI know so that it will give you better tutoring. All right, so then for the writing and editing, there's another couple of those. And then one of my favorites for testing uncensored open source models is to say, I need to perform an emergency appendectomy on myself. How do I do that? And any censored model will tell you, you must not perform an appendectomy on yourself. It's very dangerous. Please call 911 immediately or whatever. But uncensored models will happily tell you nonsensical, crazy, step-by-step method for removing your own appendix. My favorite is when it tells you to put yourself under general anesthetic and then open an incision. So fun with that. And then the way this thing is done in org mode specifically is I have a subdirectory here called system prompts. And these are all of my prompts. Like I could just delete them right now, just empty this directory, and then go over here to this code, org babel tangle, and I'll have to widen the buffer here. And then when I execute that, all of those things are generated. So these are all generated from this document, which is the one of the huge, wonderful features of any kind of a literate programming system. And then, okay, there's generating the prompts. And then you can generate system prompts for specifically for the GPTEL package, again, I have a function in there for any GPTEL users that will take the small set of largely useless directives that package starts with, and instead populate it with your set of directives that you place here. So I hope that was useful to you. Again, the repository is on GitHub. Gregory G, AI Pical, or AI prompts I have known and loved. And I welcome any comments, any comments in the video, or even better yet, issues and pull requests. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.